Jason Antalek, welcome to Nature of Reality Radio. An Akashic Records reading and clearing expert. I'm glad to have you on. I didn't see you at Empowered Light Holistic Expo, but I contacted you and all the people who were there. And before I give you the chance to come on, here's that disclaimer that I need to give out to all my listeners that, I'll probably make this 5 more times on 5 more shows before I interview the guests. Just need to get these things out for people that are probably wondering a few things. And well, anyway, first of all, the past 2.5 years, I'm really sorry if I pissed people off with all those times that people were listening to my show with headphones and had to deal with my voice in one earbud and the other person, my guest's voice in the other earbud. I know that was very annoying. I had the thing on stereo all that time. I thought it was some sort of a sabotage or AI problem, but it wasn't. And nobody ever bothered to tell me that it was a stereo problem, even though I brought it up a few times. So if anybody listens to my shows the past 2.5 years, I recommend listening to a computer so you don't have to deal with that without headphones. But if you have to listen to headphones, it is what it is. Just deal with it, and whatever will be. That's what happens. So other than that, I also want to point out that there was a message I got from YouTube, not the message I got today, which said that I'm not allowed to make money off ads, which is ridiculous because the reason they gave is ridiculous. All I do is interview people. But there's another message I got that was even more disturbing than that, saying that my channel has a lot of spam, which is bullcrap. All I do is interview people and ask questions, so they're probably just want me off the air because I expose a lot of things that the powers that be don't want people to hear. Can you say, eat your heart out, Alex Jones? So hopefully that won't happen to me. Everybody have me in your prayers. If this show gets kicked off of YouTube, I swear I will find another medium, but hopefully that will not happen. I mean, Blog Talk was great when I was on it in the old days of this program, but costs $400 a year. Don't really want to have to pay that if I don't have to. And a lot of people that used to be on Blog Talk did actually get off it to do just Skype to Skype recordings, even though you can't interact with people that way. It's still maybe a good way to do it anyhow, because Blog Talk's got its issues. So with that being said, Jason Antalek, glad to have you on the air. I've dabbled long enough with these things, so you can introduce yourself, tell us what you experienced in your life that causes you to things that you do and how you discovered your powers and all the rest of it. I have both your websites, akashaman.com, and also discovery.ourspiritualgifts.com up here to use as a guide throughout this program. You say we only have an hour, so we'll end this show at 7:05 Eastern. So if you can go longer, great, but if not, I'll just keep it to an hour. If you want to do that, that's fine. So without further ado, you got the floor. Tell us who you are.
Well, right on. Thank you, Andrew, so much for the opportunity to share what I do and for creating a platform for people to find the information that they're seeking and giving other people the opportunity to share what they know so that they can connect through whatever means necessary to get the word out where it needs to be without people like you pulling the switches on your end. People like me don't get to connect with as many people. So I really deeply appreciate the opportunity. I am, as Andrew said, an Akashic record reader. What I do is work with the information of all the interactions of everyone and everything in the universe. That is the broad stroke. The little detailed stroke is that each of us has our very own Akashic record, which is essentially the experience of our soul's journey, the factual account of all of the things that our soul has experienced since the moment it was created. And we are in a time now where being accessible to our own Akashic records is something everyone has the ability to do. It is no longer held for the deep thinkers or the enlightened. It is available for everybody. And I will share some of the advantages of what that means as we progress today. So to answer your question there, Andrew, your lead in, and appreciate that, is for how I got into the Akashic Records is a little bit of a story that I'll shorten and share. Essentially, about 4 years ago, I was prompted by a motor vehicle accident, and I came away from the collision with a closed head injury. My brain actually bumped up on the inside of my skull in the collision and created some physical issues with the brain, which therefore creates a number of other issues. And it started out really with a lot of bad headaches and mood swings. Turns out I had post-concussion syndrome, and there's really two kinds of concussion injuries. The first one of those, you go back in the game in the third quarter. The second kind, you come back next season, and that's what really happened to me. Is I didn't make it back into the game for sure. It was very difficult to start with because the initial piece was just thank goodness that I didn't die in the accident, and then I had escaped most of the physical injuries, of course, some bruising and pain and those things that come along with violent collision of some kind, and then the headache started in, and the mood swings, and the confusion, and the questions, and the disorientation, and the memory issues. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober almost 8 years now. And in the emergency room, the doctor asked me if I wanted to anything for pain, opioids, obviously. And my initial answer to that was no, I don't. Ended up on 3 times a day, Valium and Percocet for the first several weeks. And that was out of necessity. So it was a concern layered onto the other things of at some point I'm going to have to get off of this, and knowing what my past was, that I was very careful about what that looked like. So lots of medications, lots of doctor visits and MRIs and testing and all sorts of things. What eventually happened was I got to a place where science said you are just going to have to heal, and that did not work for me. That was not enough information, and I knew there were more answers available. And I started to look into alternative healing. Throughout my life, I've been exposed and participated in lots of different modalities and energies and working with crystals and magic of different sorts, astrology. I've always had an interest in lots of different different things, but this time around, it was more about getting answers for myself and my condition. It wasn't just about answering the universe's questions or our burning questions we have as human beings, because I wanted to know how to minimize what I was going through and expedite my recovery. One of the first things I found was acupuncture, which was amazing to get energy flowing. That was accentuated by several sessions of craniosacral massage. Anyone that has had a head injury, I strongly recommend that you consider craniosacral massage. It was one of the number one things. You need somebody good, not someone who read a book. You need somebody who's had training. I'm not trying to dispense medical advice by any means, but I will tell you that myself and several other folks that have had closed head injuries have had amazing success and relief and recovery as a result of craniosacral massage. It's very powerful. I also found Reiki, which was really good for things in the moment, and even getting the little bit of relief in the moment was very powerful for me, because there was the constant migraine. There were always things going on. The mood swings was something that was the most treacherous for me, because I could be in euphoria 1 minute and in depression 5 minutes later. And that happened pretty often. There was a lot of anger and a lot of why me, and a lot of how am I going to be a productive member of society again since I can't tie my own shoes. It's a very difficult space to be and to know what you're capable of and not actually be able to do it. So there were a lot of driving factors for me to find answers outside of what medicine could do for me. When I started to get a little bit better and could get on the computer and do some research of my own, I looked deeper into the things I was already doing and realized I can't sustain for the rest of my life going to those appointments every week. So I started looking for deeper level answers, something that would be maintainable on my own. And I came across the Akashic Records and was familiar with what they were. And I've always been a fan of the belief in reincarnation, and always thought it would be super cool to be able to tap into the past lives and all the skills and things that you've learned and be able to bring those into your present life, because who knows if you were a blacksmith or an alchemist or a carpenter, and you could bring those skills forward and really have those in your life now. Why not? If you've already done it, why shouldn't you? And the Akashic Records started to open the doors for those things being possible and understanding more about what we've experienced in our past lives. Now, while it's not really feasible to have all of that information available to you, because quite frankly, all of our past life info would just fry our human brain, I did discover that in the Akashic Records, in the history of my soul, were the past lives and some things that I could tap into to get really solid, reliable, applicable information. And I'm a very practical person, so I like actionable stuff. I want things that can help me right now. And my path into the Akashic Records started with a modality called soul realignment, created by Andrea Hess. And I will be forever grateful to Andrea and what she shared with the world, because her structured style of reading is what helped me access the records in a way that made sense. And it was powerful information about people at a soul level. What I learned to do was read energy that is the contributing factors to our soul's journey. So different people have different combinations of energy that are their influences, that are the superpowers, the divine gifts, our brilliance, however you'd like to refer to it. And as I progressed in my studies and started to share that information with people, I began to see how powerful it was to connect people with what they know they're good at, but didn't realize that they were actually superpowers. And we all have our own set, and everybody's gifted a little bit differently. But the beauty is that when you understand what that looks like for you, you have the gift of understanding yourself at a soul level. And when you get yourself and you know how you operate and you can grasp who you are at a level that is so deep, you get a lease on life that makes everything easier. And as I progressed in sharing that information with people, I also worked with blocks that they have in their lives and how those situations that they experience, the cycles and behaviors that they're stuck in, often have roots in previous lifetimes, whether that be karma or contracts or whatever form that energy takes between people or with themselves. Those things can carry over from a previous lifetime and affect you in your present life. And there were so many things that came up in the readings that validated the information I was accessing was absolutely real. And it took a few deliveries and seeing that for myself, because as I said, I'm pretty practical, so I needed some convincing, but I got quite a bit of that. What I didn't realize as I was moving forward in the reading process and sharing with others was that I was healing when I was in the records. When I would be signed into the records and getting information for others, I didn't have headaches. I wasn't confused. I was very focused. The mood swings were gone. And I discovered that my recovery process was becoming much, much quicker. And the more that I did readings, the better I got at both the readings and the better I got physically. So I discovered for myself firsthand how healing the Akashic Records energy really is. And I attribute that to my understanding now that the records provide two very strong things that are always consistent: love and wisdom. And love itself is a healing energy. So being in the records and receiving that kind of love, just being present, was a wonderful byproduct of getting information and wisdom for others. So as I moved forward in my recovery, I started to do more and more readings, and things took off from there. Over time, I've shifted how I do things, and I have some different techniques depending on who I'm working with and what I'm doing for somebody, different ways of working with the records. So if somebody comes to me at a fair or an event and we're doing a 20-minute or 40-minute reading, we talk about soul level energy and really connecting them with the things that are about how they operate. And the benefit of that is oftentimes our programming will push us away from the things that we're naturally good at. And they're gifts because they're supposed to make things easier. And when we discount our best skills, we're not fulfilling our purpose, because it's not supposed to be so hard. We make this place so difficult, and it's just not supposed to be like that. It doesn't have to be. It's a choice that we make. And I really enjoy helping people recognize and reconnect to how talented they truly are, and seeing it from a perspective that it's what you think makes you weird or what you think other people all possess is actually special for you, and it's there for you to use. So for me, as an example, my energy is divine self-expression. So for me, it's really about communication. That's one of my superpowers. It's also about authenticity. That's also me in my brilliance. And self-expression is something that comes in many different forms, whether that's writing or shooting video. I also have my own internet TV show, having one-on-ones with people, speaking to groups. All of these things work for me because they're expressive of who I am, and they allow me to communicate my experience. And that's my authentic experience. It's what I've gone through. So sharing my story with others is me being in my superpowers. That's where I'm very gifted, and that's my connection with others, is sharing what I've gone through. It also leads to a teaching role of some sort. So I actually am a teacher. I have developed my own version of accessing the Akashic Records and teaching people how to do that. That's kind of where the Akashaman came from. You had mentioned the website earlier, and that was akashaman.com. It's AKASHAMAN.com. And it's Akashic Shamanism. So it's those two things kind of squished together a little bit. But it's also like Akasha man. And Akasha, as in Akashic Records, is a Sanskrit word that means the primordial substance. It's the basic building blocks of the universe. It is the energy that's all around us. And as we know, energy changes forms, but it's always present. It's everywhere. Even in those spaces in space that they thought was 97% of what's out there, that's not heavenly bodies, there's energy, there's dark matter, or whatever it's now referred to. But that is the Akasha. That is the energy in what's around us all the time. And that is where the records are stored. So it's really just in the energies that are available to us. So what I learned how to do, and what has progressed for me, is being able to tap into that energy and ask the right kinds of questions to help people with whatever they're dealing with. So some people have very specific things and other people don't. Some people are just ready for a change and they're feeling very stuck. And I'm a guy that can help with that. Akashic Records, what I do with soul realignment isn't for everybody. It is deep work. It is not fluff stuff. If you want to know if you were a princess of the Nile, I am not your guy. If you want to know why you have abundance issues in your life and why your relationships suck, I'm somebody who can help you with that kind of thing. I'm all about actionable information. What helps you now? Knowing that you were a king in England, it doesn't really help you today. So it's important to me that people understand that it's not about entertainment. It really is about spiritual work and getting yourself to a place where you want to be so that you can truly use your potential. And I'm living proof that if you understand your soul level information and who you are and what energy drives you, that you can be truly successful when you start to align with that. My mentor, who I give her the title of mentor because Andrea was instrumental in my recovery and is now the basis of my practice. What the information and what she has shared, I don't know that she would call me that she would call herself a mentor to me directly, but the beauty of having an opportunity to talk with her was that I was very stuck and I didn't know what to do next. I'd been doing a lot of readings and I wasn't quite sure if I could make a living, shift out of the corporate world that I was in, that I could no longer function in the same way, and really start doing something different and making a difference and really helping people, and not just one person at a time, but helping the masses. And her suggestion to me after she asked me what my soul level energy was to go out and tell my story. So I created a meetup and I invited a bunch of people, and a few people showed up and I told them my story. And as difficult as it was, as hard as it was for me to do that, I began to heal in some different ways. And the more that I spoke in front of groups, the more I shared my story, the more I healed. So using my divine self-expression and my authenticity and my role as a teacher to share what the Akashic Records hold for people allowed me to step into all of the things that I do now. I have a full-time practice. I have a full-time healing space in a center, a spiritual center in Littleton, Colorado called Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. I've been there for more than a couple of years now. And I really enjoy meeting with people in person, on Zoom, on the phone, whatever capacity. I have clients on 4 different continents now. I've been doing a ton of speaking all around the country. This past month in June, I actually was fortunate enough to travel to London and speak there, and to teach my workshop in London while I was there as well. And that all goes back to that very first time I got up in front of people and shared my story. If I had not done that, all of the things that opened up afterwards would not be part of my journey. So that I'm a living example that when you understand your soul level information and you really connect to it, that you can deeply benefit from that information, and you can align yourself with your soul purpose without having to ask somebody else what it is. Because we spend a lot of time trying to find the answers outside of us, when the reality is we have the answers within. We just don't always know where they are or the right questions to ask. So in a nutshell, that's really how I got into the records and kind of what it's led to, the outline version. Another piece of what I do is I work with angelic Reiki. I work with angels, and that's one of my 3 cornerstones, I call them. The Akashic Records, the angels, and then shamanic practices. As my journey opened up with the angels and trying to kind of figure out who I was and this new me and continuing to build my business, I went to a meetup that was guided by a shaman and had my first shamanic journey in this lifetime. And it brought everything together in a moment for me. And I realized that that was a pathway to help other people connect with their own records. And that's what I developed, was my own understanding through dozens and dozens of meetings with people and meetups where we would try different techniques. And my workshop and my Akashic Shamanism is the culmination of all that testing and all of the things that worked put into one place and brought and delivered to people in a 1 or 2 day workshop that allows them to walk away with the ability to access their own records, to get their own information. My view is that if it belongs to you, why shouldn't you have access to it? Why shouldn't you be able to find the things that you need? It's like anything else. You've got to take some time and put some effort in. Like running your own business or having your own radio show doesn't just happen. You have to commit and be consistent, and you've got to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And that's what I help people make their way through, is what works for them and what doesn't. And the advantage of understanding who you are at soul level helps you really focus and understand why this thing works for me, but it doesn't work for somebody else. So that's kind of an example of what the workshop entails. The agenda on the workshop really is about finding the tools and delivering people their own pathway so that when they walk away, they can use the wisdom and the love in their daily lives and take a few minutes each day if they want to, through the shamanic practices or through their direct meditation, and access their own information and ask their own questions, because that empowers people. And I am all about making sure that people are better off when they walk away from a session or a reading or a workshop. They're better off with themselves than they were when they met me, or before they got any kind of interaction. And that philosophy and sharing my story and providing people the understanding that their records are accessible is really what my mission is, and to help people recognize that it doesn't take, you don't have to sit on a mountain for a year under a tree meditating and not eating to achieve the things that we need to. In our world, it's all about getting to things quickly and doing it in a way that we can apply it and use it. If we're in a place of awakening, which most of us are, if you're listening to this program, you most certainly are on some sort of path to awakening, whether that's spiritual or personal. It doesn't really matter what you label it, but if you want to find out why you've got certain blocks and weird stuff happening in your life, the Akashic Records are a perfect way to do that. It is not the only way, but it is what I know to be the most efficient and direct way of doing things. So, Andrew, I'd be willing to share or give an example to your listeners about what I mean by soul level energy. If you would be willing to allow that, I could share with them, if you're open to it, what your primary energy may be.
Well, actually, I've made a resolution when I first started doing this show that I would never have a healer or someone like you ever do a reading or a clearing or a healing on me, because the important thing about my show is to get information out, not to dedicate the time to doing healings and clearings on me. That's if I ever wanted you to do a healing or a clearing on me, then I would actually do it off the air and not on the air. But so
I can respect that, but I'll also say that there's 8 different kinds of energy. I've shared one. Whatever one we share that that you have helps another, we'd be at 2 out of 8 instead of just 1 out of 8. But that I understand where you're coming from. It's really just about sharing with people and letting them connect and recognize that they're going to probably be different than me. One of the things about working with gurus or working with spiritual teachers is that if your energy is not the same as theirs, while some of their techniques will work for you, the reality is that they're not all going to work because you're different. The chances are 1 in 8 that you're going to match up and that what you do is going to, or what they do is going to work for you. And while you'll find some success, but only part of it works, that's usually the reason why. Because let me tell you, folks, the best thing you can do is find the tools that work for you and then apply them in the way that is most effective for you. That is where the real gem, that's where the real power is. That's the space where you become who you truly are. Speaking from experience with that, when I am creating a new talk and I am researching and learning and writing and practicing and speaking in front of people, sharing my talk with others, the whole way is a process that I can feel building and getting stronger and stronger. And I can actually feel the progression of me stepping into a place, and I know that what I'm doing is the right thing. And when you understand your personal energy, that puts you in a place of really being able to figure out what that looks like for you. Because even someone with my same energy may not do well speaking in front of groups. They may do better as a blogger. So they create a blog 2 or 3 times a week, or they have a newsletter, and that newsletter is what they put out into the world. So speaking for them or being on an interview might not be the best combination for them. So even though the energies may be the same and we may be in some of the same realms, it's not really about doing it my way or doing what I do. It's about doing what works for you and what that means for you on your personal level. So that's one of the best takeaways, is that the way you do things is really when you're at your most powerful. And I urge folks out there to take an opportunity to look at the things you know you're good at, the things that maybe you discount a little bit. If you're a person that is all about truth energy, you're going to be someone that will always see the truth in a bigger perspective, in a more broad picture than most people can see it. You may be in touch when people are lying to you or themselves or to each other. You may also have a very strong passion for pointing out injustice, because when the little guy doesn't have a voice and somebody stomps on them, you might be the one who stands up to the bully or points out the corruption. That kind of truth energy is very powerful, and we sometimes don't recognize that our ability to see the truth is actually a superpower, because it comes as a double-edged sword in a lot of cases. So it can be tough to see the world as it really is and then try to explain it, and people just don't get it because they're wired in a different way. So having a gift of truth and being able to see it while a superpower comes with some other needs to balance it out. One of those is expressing that truth. So if you're connecting with the things I'm saying about truth energy, I would urge you to recognize that for you, it is most likely very important to get that truth energy out, to express it in some way, whether that's through cooking or dancing or writing or drawing, whatever it is for you. It doesn't have to be in the arts, but expressing your truth is very powerful. And when you give yourself the opportunity to do that, you will be a lot happier person. You'll be able to deal with the other things very easily. One of the beauties of the Akashic Records and understanding the root cause of your issues is that there are perspectives offered to you when you see the factual account of where something began that allow you to detach from the emotional baggage. As an example, I worked with a client and shared with her that she had a past life where her and her brother were playing next to a stream on their land. This was several lives ago, so it was kind of back in the Old West style days. And the rain, or the recent rain on that land in that lifetime, had changed the stream into a raging river of sorts. And her little brother, who had played there their whole life, didn't recognize the danger, and her little brother slipped in, fell into the water, and was never seen again. And she froze when I shared this with her and told me that when she was young, her and her family were traveling and they were at a hotel pool, and her little brother slipped and fell in the pool and she froze. She could swim, she knew he couldn't, but her fear would not allow her to move, to jump in the water and try and help him. And she was in her 60s and had been carrying that around since she was a little girl, not understanding why and where that came from. But when she understood that there was a past life situation, that allowed her to release herself from the guilt and the anguish of that occurrence in this lifetime, and recognize that she was in a place that it was okay to move on from that, to let that go. Oftentimes what we find as well is that a past life situation will be more tragic than what we're experiencing now. Like in her case, her little brother was pulled out of the water by a family member. So obviously there has been some work done around it because he didn't drown. I would call that an improvement. And that's often what I find when I work with people, that they've worked through some of their issues, but they've gotten to a place where Reiki healing or clearings or whatever doesn't really do the trick. They've gone to counseling, they've gone to therapy, but they just aren't able to shake whatever it is. And a lot of times it addresses those things that we just can't quite put into words. But when you get a different perspective from a previous timeline and you understand why you chose to do the things you did, it's a whole lot easier to understand why you're dealing with it now. And it's not about rewriting the record in a way that you erase that, because why waste the lesson? In my opinion, it's better to keep it there and have the understanding so you don't have to go through it again, and release yourself from the emotional trauma and the things that come with it. When you do your own clearing, when you do it for yourself, then your understanding of it, your participation in the experience, the action that you take solidifies it in your life and gives you a new platform to work from. And that all comes from being able to understand what the past life link is. When you can sever the emotional ties and get a fresh perspective, it allows you some freedom to make a choice instead of just reacting to whatever it is that you're exposed to. That's our training, right? We something happens and we react to it. And it's almost like we can't help ourselves. When you understand why you react that way, it gives you an opportunity to make a choice instead of just taking an automatic behavioral response and putting that in your box of why did I do this thing again. It lets you empty that box, and you don't have to do it again because you can make new choices. You can decide that you're going to do things differently, and then therefore your experience changes. And the power of the Akashic Records is that you can access your own information and find those things. And there's lots of resources, there's lots of ways. If you want that expedited and you want to understand things, an Akashic Record reader is a great way to get that going. And depending on what it is that you need, you got to connect with who works for you. There's a lot of books available. There's a lot of YouTube videos available. And I would urge you to try more than one. Try multiple processes. And if one doesn't work, don't give up on yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to progress, because while you may not be skilled in getting there, you can do it. It is possible. It took me years to be able to just pop in the records and get information for people and pop out. But that's because I do it in an almost daily capacity. It's part of who I am. Do I meditate every day? No. Do I work on my spiritual journey every single day? No, because I want to eat a hamburger and walk on the beach. I want to do some fun stuff here. This planet is pretty neat. There's a lot of great stuff to see and experience. And if you're obsessed with getting to this spiritual place or turning into this guru, not that there's anything wrong with that, but obsession is not part of who I am. Having a mission, having a purpose that is singular is not always a great thing. Oftentimes you can be so enthralled and so driven by it that there is nothing else. While I respect that in others, it is not the way I would like to do things. I enjoy having some freedom and some opportunity and to make choices and to experience other people's journeys and meet with people one-on-one. There is a bigger message, and I have figured out what that is for me. But understand, for each of us, there are lots of purposes for our life. There is not really a one thing. There is not really a one answer. You can't go to somebody and say, what is my life purpose, and have them just lay it out for you, because they don't understand your collective experience. They can offer you guidance. They can tell you those things, but it's not necessarily going to give you the answers that you want. And it may not even be the truth, because once you're aware of what's possible for you, you can change that. In the Akashic Records is not only everything our soul has done, it also includes what is possible in our future. So let me kind of explain what that means. If you're going from this moment right here, and your question is about your career, should I do this thing or should I do that thing? Is this person the one? Is this the right investment? And somebody gives you that answer, then your experience changes. Because if you take on the belief of that answer, then how you figured it out or how you found it out was not a natural occurrence. It wasn't a part of your journey. It was more of a delivery of a point. And our vision of the future in the Akashic Records is more of a possibility, probability style. It is not about, oh, this is going to happen. Because if you ask how you're going to die and somebody tells you, you can avoid that thing. Somebody tells you you're going to expire in a motor vehicle accident, then you just never get in a car across the street. So you adjust your experience and you live differently. So it changes things. Another aspect is that there are many possible futures. A perfect example are the readings of Nostradamus. He was absolutely in the Akashic Records through whatever state he got there in. That's exactly what he was seeing. And that's why he was able to describe events, but that's also why there is some vague interpretation of what he's talking about, because what he saw was a possible future. And while amazingly accurate in many cases, there are just as many where he was not, because what he saw were the possibilities. So if you know what's coming in your future, then you can make the change. I can tell you what your future holds, but having that knowledge, as soon as you make a different decision, changes the whole thing. It has that potential. So yeah, you can get an idea of what could be coming, but the reality for us is that we're supposed to live it. We're supposed to walk the walk. It's our path to travel down. It's not about getting all the answers and applying those and getting to a new place. Sometimes not having the answer is the journey, because finding it for yourself is what you're supposed to be doing. We have life purposes that fall in all categories of our life, whether that's with our parents or our children or our loved ones or our career, or figuring out who we are or if we even believe in God. Sometimes it's just that simple. In fact, in most cases, our lives are pretty ordinary. All of our lives have been pretty ordinary. You don't often come across somebody who was a special high level political person or some type of royalty. Those things do happen, but that's not really helpful. If you're not in that lineage anymore, you're not really benefiting from it. It might be nice to understand that you were very wealthy in another lifetime, and in this lifetime you can't seem to hold on to wealth because in the previous life you took it for granted. And you realized late in your life that money didn't mean anything to you. So in this lifetime, you may very well amass small fortunes and then lose them because somewhere along the way, you vowed to yourself that I'm never going to let money get me to that place again. I'm never going to be corrupted by it again. And you will actually self-sabotage because you recognize you've gotten to yourself in a financial position that you are now in jeopardy of possibly shifting how you act. And you vowed to yourself not to do that. So those are the sorts of answers that come from past lives. If you want to look into the future and find out if you're rich, you still got to take all the steps to get there. If the answer is yes, you still got to do the work. The Akashic Records are not going to give you the lottery numbers. That is not how it works. If you want information on yourself, you can get it yourself, or you can provide someone with the permission to access them for you. What I mean by that is you cannot read somebody's records without their permission. Like I just asked Andrew if he would be interested in that, and he said no. Therefore, I don't read his energy because that's out of the integrity of the records. If I was allowed to, I would only be allowed to read as far as was appropriate for him. I can't even dig into things beyond what we have agreed is what we're going to do because the records are protected. Your record is protected. Your spirit guides, your angels, those that are associated with you, have access to that information in order to assist you, but it is not something that just any individual can dive into. So Andrew, do you have any questions? Do you have
Oh
anything
yes,
that?
yes, and well, this is one of those shows where nobody can bitch at me for filibustering my guests and talking too much. So yes, that's happened before, but I'm glad you have a lot of things to say. It's a rare gem when you have a guest like that. So, but one thing about the Akashic Records that I do want to make clear is, well, first of all, Andrew Bartz as the Akashic Records reader has always been my number one source of info, and my justification for that is that, well, one, the Akashic Records are probably hands down the best way of answering a definitive answer to a question, and two, his job is a galactic historian, so he's meant to be a source of info. I mean, you seem like an Akashic Records reader who's not going to give galactic history. You have other jobs to do with it. So, but still, I would think you're a great source in that regard. But one thing that I need to ask you is, well, do you agree or disagree with Andrew Bartis when he says, even with me, use discernment? Well, I appreciate the humble attitude, Andrew, but if you can read the Akashic Records, then are you not like the best source, bar none? What do you think about that?
Well, I would agree that discernment is immensely important because while someone can provide you with factual information from your records, you are the expert in who you are. You're the one who is living the experience. You're the one who is actually has actually traveled the path, right? So even though the information may be deeply resonant, how it affects you and how you apply it is yours to decide. I can give you tons of information, and yeah, I can give you galactic information too, but what you do with that is what really matters. So yeah, absolutely, I agree with the discernment, and that should be true no matter who you deal with. If you don't resonate with the information somebody's giving you, to me, if that happens, I ask myself two questions. The first is it because I don't like the information, or is it because I really don't think that it's about me? Because a lot of readers, a lot of clairvoyance in that. I mean, we all have our own filter of how we deliver information, but the Akashics allows those of us that read from that to deliver what we see as facts, right? That they're actual facts to us. Whereas, some clairvoyants, while they do that, they have those facts. They also use their other skills to devise what advice they might dispense or what wisdom they share. So there's always the idea of who do I go to, who do I work with, and I totally respect that you have a guy for that. Like, that's amazing to have somebody that you trust to be able to give you a direct answer from your own information. I mean, that's a great guy to have on speed dial, right? So I'm gonna say, yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Great. And when it comes to Akashic readings and the chakra system, first of all, I've always picked on George Kavasilis for what he says with not how you shouldn't focus on the chakras, because he asserts that chakras, even though they exist and all, and understanding them is a key to understanding the nature of reality. In reality, in his opinion, there's no sense in using them because they're really just a matrix construct from Atlantean times. It's better, he says, to just dissolve, is the word used, dissolve your chakras into one, and he dissolves them into the heart soul essence. And he says if you do that, you can't go wrong. Well, I'm more power to him if he can do that and not get bored, but I think he's missing out on a lot of creativity by that. And one thing he is missing out on, I assert, if you believe Andrew Bartzis, Bartzis has said that the crown chakra in particular plays a very critical role in his ability to read the Akashic records. So one could make the argument, well, George, if you want to be a know-it-all, you're not going to be able to be a know-it-all by using the heart soul essence. But Andrew Bartzis, he can be a know-it-all by using the crown chakra to access the Akashic records to answer almost any question. So, any comments?
Yeah, I got to side with Andrew on that one, because here's the first part of why, for me personally, is that when you are writing into your Akashic records, which you're doing constantly, you're doing that from your seventh chakra. Everybody's connected to their records energetically because you're sending information that's being recorded there. So all of your thoughts, your experience, your choices, your actions, your interactions with others, all of that stuff is in there. And that's where the connection is through your seventh chakra into the eighth chakra and then into your records. So there is great benefit in working with specific chakras. I can see the benefit of melding them into one, but the reality is that there's different energy centers for different reasons. If you are trying to run your sexual organs with your heart, you're going to find some contradictions in that, is my personal experience. Now, what I can say is that it can be very powerful to personally align your chakras and distribute your energy evenly through all of them. An example of that is people who are very much up in their head, that are in the headspace, that are thinkers, that don't really do the feeling or the creativity. They're very analytical. They're constantly, fabricating things in their head or looking at scenarios. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that in a very neutral way. But someone who's constantly in their head doesn't necessarily have their creativity fired up. And if they are able to pull themselves out of their sixth and seventh chakra and distribute that energy throughout their chakras down into your creative center, which is in your second chakra, you've now connected what's going on in your mind with what's going on in your gut and fired up and reconnected your intuition, for lack of another term. But that can actually enhance what you're thinking about and what you're doing. So melding all of them together seems kind of like that's like taking everything on your plate and kind of putting it in a blender and drinking it through a straw. I think that takes some of the fun out of it, right? Like, I want to taste my food. I don't want to, drink gravy every night. I want to actually taste what I'm eating. So I'm gonna go with keeping them separate. Definitely has great advantages. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, and I noticed that looking at your websites here, you seem kind of obsessed, if you will, with the color violet, which would make sense because that's the crown chakra color.
Well, that's Discover Your Spiritual Gifts. If you're looking at that, that's owned by a lady named Violet Rain, so that is fully her color. I, as a Kashaman, actually in my logo have a balance of colors. I do use purple and blue quite a bit. Those because one is the connection, the crown chakra connection, but the blue represents the fifth chakra, and I'm all about communication, right? So that's where that really comes from for me. But I like to incorporate all of it. So I'm a big believer in having all the colors present. Didn't mean to cut you off, but that's depending on which website you're looking at. One of them is all purple, as is the space. It's very purple as well.
Yeah, and the picture of you that I chose has a purple violet shirt that you're wearing. That
Yep.
because I noticed that, I figured I'd point that out. Well, it's a cool color, and I actually don't have any violet shirts. Maybe I should get myself one. Last time Daniel Teague did a chakra activation on me, he said my crown chakra was the one that was energetically blocked. Surprisingly, though, all the lower ones seem to be active. The first time he did a chakra reading, though, the third eye and the crown were spinning and active, and the other ones were, well, spinning and active, but at a lower rate. So I wonder what I could have possibly done in that time frame. Maybe you can help answer this. If someone discovers that, like in my case, when I first did a chakra reading with Daniel Teague, he third eye, crown, spinning, highly active, and all the lower ones were spinning and active, but not as strong. Second time, like the lower chakras and all of them seemed to be spinning and active, but the crown chakra got energetically blocked. So it seems kind of strange that something like that would have happened. I mean, I could guess the first time maybe I was focusing a little too much on spiritual stuff and wasn't down to earth enough. And then the second time I was a little more, I don't know, maybe balanced out the down to earth, but somehow it makes you wonder what could I have possibly done that could have caused me to get my crown chakra energetically blocked. I mean, at a given time when someone does a chakra reading and they notice that one is blocked, I mean, can that change like in the course of like time instantly, or does it take time? Like time is an illusion and all, but what causes chakras to open and close and spin high and spin low, if you know what, get my drift?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's an excellent question, and you're making this really easy for me because both are true. It can change in an instant, and it can change over time. So your intuition on what happened with me, what is my question, is actually in my experience very accurate. There's a term that a friend of mine, granddaughter Crow, uses that I'm not sure where she got it from, but something about people being so highly spiritual that they're no earthly good, and someone that's so up in their seventh chakra, they're not grounded in their experience. I mean, we've made a commitment to be here in a physical place. It's sort of important that you be present. It's about getting around and not bumping into people and running over folks in the crosswalk, and you got to pay attention to what the heck's going on. But we have our five senses here, and we're able to use those, and using those actually keeps you grounded. If you're up in your head and you're floaty, eating some food can help you. If you're emotional, go out into the river and allow your heart chakra to get cleansed. Everybody's got kind of their own way of doing things, which I've said quite a bit, but when it comes to chakras, it's just as true. Someone that wants to develop or open their third eye, I tell them that you want to consider what colors you're wearing. Like you said with the shirt, find an indigo shirt, find a shirt that represents that, what a color that represents that, or work with the stones or meditations that activate your third eye. If you're looking to open up your creative centers, that's your second chakra. That's orange. Wear orange. Use orange stones. Use the color orange when you write things. And there's lots of different ways to work with that. If you've got something going on for yourself and you can pinpoint it to a chakra, learn about that chakra. You don't have to understand all 7 of them perfectly to be able to work with one of them. People have a tendency, me included, to think you got to be an expert at something before you can work with it. And for me, it's just knowing my personal energy. It's about taking the knowledge and having an experience with it. So when I read about the second chakra and what do I do with this, and I feel like my creative juices are not flowing, I look for ways to activate that chakra and I try them. And when I find something that works, that's what I do. For me, wearing an orange shirt works. And if I know I've got to do something crazy creative that day and I've got an orange shirt available, believe that's what I'm putting on. And if, I got to get some carnelian or, orange calcite or something around me to have near me to help the inspiration, I don't call those crutches. I call them tools. So use it. If you're up in your head a lot, you're going to find that your lower chakras may not be quite so active. Like you said, if you're really spiritually active, it's very easy for you to get caught up in that space. And that's natural human stuff. One of the things I share with people all the time is that a lot of the answers are that you're just human and you're supposed to have some messed up stuff happen. There's experiences in this place that expedite our spiritual growth. Just being on this planet means you're already in an advanced state. You're already in an accelerated growth. And being alive in the time that we're in right now, use every single tool you can find to make things work better for yourself, whether that's studying the chakras or yoga or the records or, whatever it is that flies things for you. Recognizing your personal energy and working with it is one of the most powerful things you can do. And understanding that you are the one who makes the choices that determine your experience. So if you got serious heart stuff going on and you've broke up with your girlfriend and you're really hurting, yeah, a little pink might do you some good because it helps heal your heart, right? Rose quartz is something that works with emotions. It helps you release them. It helps you address them. But for somebody else, that might mean that they want to smell roses or, something different. So it's really about connecting with what works for you, but trying different things, because just because it works one time in one situation doesn't mean that the same thing works in another one. Some people's chakras react to sound. Others react to colors or foods or, having some sort of acupuncture that activates your kidneys. If you're having issues with your third chakra, look at what things are associated with that in your body and cleanse those areas. If you're having trouble in your heart space, and you can consider, what foods are good for my heart. Is exercise good for me? There's lots of ways to do things. So absolutely, working with your chakras is a powerful place, and it's something that you can adjust in a moment just through your intentions, or you can gradually change things over time. Sometimes it probably isn't appropriate to make a very fast move, and then other times it could save your life to make one. So I'd say it's very situational, depending on what you're going through. It's important, if you're working with someone, to be as transparent and open as you can be in that moment. Because if you're getting a reading or you're having that discussion with somebody's going to work with your chakras. Give them the right information so they know what to do for you. You gotta be open to the possibilities and learning new tools.
Absolutely. And one quick thing about colors before I call it a show. Yesterday, 4th of July, Independence Day, everybody, well, lots of colors with the fireworks, but red, white, and blue, everybody's fascinated the most by. But of course, thanks to Mark Passio, we now know that red and blue put together forms an imbalance, and cops are so corrupt because they have red and blue lights on their cars, among other things. Cop cars should be green. That would be nice if they could maybe bring a little balance to them. When I was at the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl parade, after they won the Super Bowl, there was a lot of green everywhere. So that probably caused everybody to be very friendly. So I think color does work in some regard. But anyway, we are up at past the hour point. You did want to leave it to an hour, so I guess I'll give you the chance now. Take a minute or two to get anything you like. Get out your websites, and then we'll call it a show, and I will make sure I upload this to YouTube by midnight tomorrow at the absolute latest.
Awesome. Well, thanks again so much, man, for the opportunity and the platform to share my story and share what I do and really share some of the knowledge of the Akashic Records and help people kind of, connect and understand. One thing I'd like to just toss in, if I could, if that's okay. I know, we did the time thing, but we seem to have a pretty good conversation going. What I'd like to share with people is that you're in your records more often than you probably realize. Imagination is a very powerful thing. And sometimes we don't recognize that we're slipping from imagination to actual experience. If you've ever been a person that daydreamed or had really vivid dreams, even just one in your whole life, but you feel like you were there, oftentimes that's the same as the Akashic energy. And quite frankly, you could actually be in your records. When you meet somebody for the first time and you feel like you know them and you've never met them in this lifetime, that's another aspect of your records being recognized. Also, when you go to geographic places that you feel like you've been to before, you may very well have been there and even lived there at some point. It's not unusual for those things to show up. Deja vu, to me, this is my view on it. I'm not trying to change anybody's thoughts on deja vu, but to me, it's a glimpse into your soul plan. It's a reminder that you're right where you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing, because it's a connection, a synchronicity that is a little bit of a reminder like, hey, everything's cool. It's all good. Sometimes that is very helpful to people. Not everybody has that view, and I'm okay with that. That's just my experience and my understanding of it. So you're already accessing your Akashic Records in one way or another. People often ask me as well, how do I know what the difference is? How do I know when I'm not imagining it? Well, we all fake it until we get there. Every night when you go to sleep, unless you're, falling asleep watching TV, if you think about yourself going to sleep, you lay down, you close your eyes, and you kind of fake it until you actually fall asleep. And who knows when you actually pass from one to the other, right? You're awake and then you're asleep and then it's morning. So it's very similar when you access your records and give yourself the opportunity to see the small shifts in the energy and connect with the possibility. It doesn't have to be a perfect trip. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. It can be jumbled and messed up, because that's what the human mind tends to be, is a little jumbled and messed up. So I just wanted to share those points. Thank you for letting me squeeze that in. You can find me if you want to work specifically with me through akashaman.com. That's AKASHAMAN.com. I provide 15-minute free consultations if working together is something that you're interested in. It's a no obligation opportunity for us to spend a few minutes on the phone talking about what it is that you're looking for and if I am a good fit to assist you. If you already know you want to study the Akashic Records, Soul Realignment with Andrea Hess is a great way to get started and to check it out. Feel free to hit up her website. Also, a shameless plug here for my personal internet TV show is The Spiritual Handyman. And I also have a YouTube channel and have a podcast on Podbean. Might be worth checking out there, Andrew, just saying Podbean's pretty cool. And I interview experts in their field from all over the world that provide spiritual tools that you can apply in your daily life. You don't have to sit down and watch every episode to gain anything out of it. Find a title that catches your eye, and watch it and apply the tools, and it can really make a difference in your life. So it's thespiritualhandyman.com or The Spiritual Handyman on YouTube. So feel free to check those out. So I'd love to hear from anybody, hear the feedback. Reach out to me through my website at akashaman.com. You can go to the contact link and send me an email and get more information about any of the things that I do. Again, Andrew, thank you so much for this opportunity and for maintaining this platform for people to get, information beyond what's available on the cable news channels and, all the government funded stuff that's out there. Without people being able to access these kind of things, they don't get the information in a lot of cases, and you make it accessible, and I appreciate what you do for folks.
And I appreciate you coming on the show. Great show, and thank you for taking up a lot of the talking time so listeners don't have to hear me blab. That was great. Loved having you on, and maybe I'll see you at a future conference. Take care, namaste, and I'll upload this to YouTube by midnight tomorrow and send you the link when I do. Take care.
Right on.